We're finally getting our first taste of the Pokemon franchise in a brand new time period. So what if this unique older version of Sinnoh had regional forms of its own that could appear in a feudal version of the region? After all, real-life plant or animal species do take on new variants if they're exposed to wildly new environments. So today I've designed a few new regional variants of Pokemon that weren't in the original Sinnoh games, or are just from generations 5 through 8, imagining what forms they'd take if they were brought to the Sinnoh region in the ancient society of Legends Arceus. All of these designs will share a common connection. They're all inspired by either the culture of Japanese feudal society, the ecology of Hokkaido, which Sinnoh is based on, or a mix of real-world legends and mythologies, since Sinnoh has the most mythological theme of any Pokemon region to date. So without further ado, let's meet our first Sinnoh variant. Long ago, Sinnoh's feudal society opened up their first trading ports to the outside world. Traders from the Kanto and Johto regions came on ships and made land at ancient versions of Sunyshore and Pastoria cities. With them, they brought their trusty companion Pokemon, the obedient Growlithe species. However, as the traders settled in Sinnoh, so did their fire-type companions, where they quickly bred and became an invasive wild species. The feral versions of these dogs quickly found shelter in the nearby marshy areas that in present day make up the Great Marsh and Route 212. In these swamps, the undomesticated versions of these dogs grew a resistance to the bacteria and viruses. Through that, they gained a poison and dragon typing, where they become one of the apex predators of southern Sinnoh, gaining a fearsome evolution in Sinnoh and Arcanine. The look of these fearsome creatures is inspired by manticores, who in Mediterranean and Middle Eastern mythology are hybrid creatures with features of lions, insects, and dragons. I modeled the Arcanine line in Sinnoh mainly after these monsters, because they fit well into the swamp-like atmosphere and could easily become top rivals with a Pokemon like Drapion or Toxicroak. I also modeled their faces slightly after Oni, which are present in Japanese mythology, and fearsome demon creatures that roam desolate landscapes. So in ancient Sinnoh, the Arcanine species was nothing like the gentle companions that they are in other regions. Instead, they're symbols of violence, death, and the dangers that live within the rugged marshes. Next up, we've got a familiar favorite from Hoenn. Similar to Growlithe, traders from Hoenn brought some local Pokemon with them, namely SABLEYE. These guys stowed away on boats departing from Dewford Town, close to their native home in the Granite Caves. When they arrived in Sinnoh, the SABLEYE species was quickly driven out of Mount Coronet due to the tough competition there with Pokemon like Garchomp and Bronzong. They headed west instead to the foothills of northwestern Sinnoh, where they settled in villages in the ancient versions of Florama Town and Eterna City, in a certain meadow where honey trees are common. Sinnoh and SABLEYE feasted on the honey that they mistook for gems due to their shiny nature, and their biology changed so that they can metabolize honey and other substances that came from trees. These versions of SABLEYE gained a bug typing to replace their dark one, as a way of gaining a resistance to the Vespiquen and Combee that called the honey trees home. In terms of design, this version of SABLEYE is just meant to look like a general goblin or a trickster figure, such as Japanese kitsune, that would raid villages, farms, trees, and meadows on their hunt for pretty much anything. Their paws and feet are also covered in honey, which helps them snag onto stuff. Folklore in ancient Sinnoh says that if you leave any sort of valuable outside at night, a SABLEYE will come and steal it, leaving a sticky footprint trail on the ground as it leaves. Next up, we'll travel back to the center of the region, where the Spear Pillar exists as ruins of an ancient site of worship to the gods of Sinnoh. Long ago, the ancient people of Sinnoh sought to protect the shrines they built. Here, they carved out the metamorphic rocks of Mount Coronet into marble, where they built Sinnoh and GOLURK. Although calling the species Sinnoh and GOLURK is somewhat of a misnomer, since they did this far before Unova built their version of the golem. So, the marble version of GOLURK is the original version, with the design being replicated poorly by the Unovan Empire several hundred years later, which is why that design is built out of a more poor material, has a seal on its chest, and is a ghost type, because it's a crude imitation and is therefore haunted. But here in Sinnoh, GOLURK were just the guardians of the Spear Pillar and other notable palaces and temples around the region. In the slightly more modern time that Legends Arceus takes place, that ancient civilization has crumbled, and instead Sinnoh's moved into a feudal society. So the Spear Pillar is now a ruin the same way it is in modern times. So GOLURK is much rarer and only a remnant of a truly ancient civilization. Golett and GOLURK can be found roaming around ruins and cemeteries, where they can be enlisted by travelers or warriors as elite guards, but they'll only fight for those with good intentions and a pure heart. That's why they have a rock and fairy typing. I modeled these guys after Spartan warriors from ancient Greek society, with the marble statue quality coming from the Hellenistic art style that's well known now. They also have Eastern inspirations since they're somewhat like the Kamino guardian lions, which would guard the most sacred inner parts of Shinto shrines in Japan, or Buddhist temples in the Edo period. Next up, I want to introduce a Pokemon that has one of the biggest impacts on culture and society of feudal Sinnoh, of any regional form so far. Brought over from Alola, Salandit barely had to adapt to the mountainous regions of Sinnoh, keeping its fire typing. It still made dens in mud and lava, but it was driven out from larger mountain areas by fearsome predators like Garchomp. So instead, they went to the lower regions. They burrowed tunnels all over the region of Sinnoh and unearthed precious minerals in doing so, creating complex, functional tunnels that became the basis for the Sinnoh underground that humans fleshed out in modern times. However, with this tunnel lifestyle, Sinnohan Salandit quickly lost the poisoning glands that its tropical counterparts used as defense mechanisms, and its internal biology was rearranged to more efficiently metabolize all the minerals it was chewing through when making tunnels. It developed a much hotter internal belly that extracted nutrients to keep the Pokemon fueled, but everything it didn't metabolize well was left in its droppings, leaving a fine sand-like iron substance similar to real-life iron sand. In real-life Japan, iron sand was discovered almost 1,000 years ago, and it was discovered to be the ideal composition of metal to smelt, which the Japanese used to efficiently create infrastructure out of iron, including samurai weaponry. They built complex blast furnaces that transformed Japanese society forever. So in feudal Sinnoh, residents quickly realized that Salandit droppings could be smelted into iron. They also studied the biology of Sinnoh and Salandit and based their furnaces off of the creature's internal organs, due to its smelting efficiency. So Sinnoh and Salandit is responsible for the development of all the modern Orberg mines, Iron Island mines, and the Fuego Ironworks. All of these mines and human settlements were built around the original habitats of Sinnoh and Salandit, because wherever they dug tunnels, humans were sure to find plenty of minerals to modernize Sinnoh forever. However, Salandit of course had an evolution that gained a Sinnoh form too. In these dens and tunnels built by Salandit, Sinnoh and SALAZZLE filled a similar niche to their lowland counterparts, where they commanded troops of Salandits to serve them. The inspirations for these SALAZZLEs lies in Japanese royalty, where they have a metallic crown-like horn on their foreheads. These SALAZZLE like to hoard minerals in dens, almost like dragons hoarding treasure, and they'll fiercely fight back against any invaders. That's why they picked up a dragon typing to replace poison, so they could rival the strength of Pokemon like Garchomp. They also have a more developed internal combustion system in their stomachs than their pre-evolutions, so they can metabolize minerals and extract sulfur, carbon, and potassium nitrate and spit it out. That's right, Sinnoh and SALAZZLEs are capable of producing their own gunpowder, which they use in combination with their fire typing to fight with long-range firepower. Similar to Japanese fire guns, or Tanegashima, these were the first guns ever developed in feudal Japan, and the artillery used by samurai, as well as the inspiration for Sinnoh and SALAZZLE's more special-based attacks. However, unlike Alolan Salandit, the male versions of these species were able to evolve only in the Sinnoh region, due to the rich minerals that they were consuming, producing a Sinnoh-exclusive evolution for only the male versions of the species that evolve at level 33. Meet Feronin, from Ferrum, the chemical name for iron, and Ronin, the Japanese word for a traveling warrior in feudal Japan. Unlike SALAZZLE, which act as the royalty within the species tunnels, and only fight occasionally using long-range, special-based attack strategies, Feronin are the main defense for the evolution family, and they specialize in close-range combat similar to real-life samurai swordsmen. Their stomachs contain full-on blast furnaces, which very efficiently convert the iron that they eat into hardened scales that cover their bodies. They fight by slashing opponents with these razor-sharp metal scales, which grow back within mere hours if broken off. This is a reference to the razor-sharp katanas wielded by Japanese warriors. In feudal Sinnoh, they were considered one of the best Pokemon to wield in times of conflict, since a combination of their fire-type powers and their combat expertise made them incredibly destructive and dangerous Pokemon, but ones that were highly paired with human society. To wrap up things in Sinnoh, let's look at a much gentler creature that was also important to the culture of feudal Sinnoh. Here's Sinnohan Pancham, which came from warmer regions like Kalos and Alola, and searched for their favorite type of food, bamboo. However, they find themselves settling in forests near Snow Point City on the Coronet mountain range, where they adapted to the year-round below freezing temperatures, by gaining a fire typing that retained their internal heat. Rather than roam around warmer climates and gain strength by fighting other Pokemon, Sinnoh and Pancham are a lot more reserved creatures that prefer to stay warm and simply survive. Their mental strength has also increased due to their meditation practices and social isolation, similar to species like Metatite. This makes them highly intelligent creatures. and they're modeled after red pandas, which are native to the Himalayas of northern India and southern China. This seemed like a no-brainer to make as the counterpart to the giant panda-inspired Panshams. However, this intelligent species also evolved into an entirely new Pokemon here in Sinnoh, entirely foregoing a transformation into Pangoro. Here in Sinnoh, Pansham evolve into Panshanti, from Panda and Shanti, the Buddhist word for peace. These Pokemon are also inspired by red pandas. They're incredibly intelligent creatures, among the most intelligent of any Pokemon species, because they only evolve once they fully master their mental discipline, foregoing physical conflict for the most part. They're kind-hearted creatures who will aid lost human explorers and hurt Pokemon up in the mountains of Mount Coronet. They're inspired by gurus and monks who practice Buddhism and other forms of spirituality in the far reaches of the Himalayan mountains, with a brief nod to Shaolin Kung Fu warriors, due to the staff it carries and the robe-like patterns of its fur coating. These creatures in feudal Sinnohan legend are said to gain their mental strength because the summit of Mount Coronet is at the center of the Pokemon region, and therefore the cosmic center of the Pokemon universe, since that's where Arceus, Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina originate. So Panshanti are said to tap into this cosmic strength, unlike any other non-legendary Pokemon species. This is a reference to real-world Buddhism, where Mount Meru is said to be the cosmic center of the universe and a place where true enlightenment can be attained. So Panshanti would be a powerful psychic type that prefers to use strategy and psychic manipulation to win battles if needed. They'd also be revered by the people of Sinnoh, and those people would hike up to the mountains to meet with Panshanti for spiritual guidance. So there you go, I've introduced 4 new regional line variants and 2 separate Sinnoh exclusive evolutions that all might fit into a feudal version of the region. I hope you've enjoyed this speculative video and the background on new forms that might inhabit the world of Pokemon Legends Arceus. If you like this video, be sure to follow the newly created Tam Valley Productions Instagram, where I'll post the artwork for these Pokemon plus content related to the California region that I'm working on in the coming days. Also, be sure to join the Tam Valley Discord and Twitter, where I post updates about new videos, exclusive artwork, and memes in general. Both can be found with links in the description of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for more content.